Welcome and thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Cafe. I should say thank you for joining us again on the Leadership Cafe.
Yeah, that's
where
so.
we talk to extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses. We're excited today. You'll find out why when you meet our guest in a few moments. We're your hosts. I'm Richard Citron.
And I'm Michael Couch. We realize that in times of this disruption that we're all experiencing, that it might be a great time to talk with leaders who are right in the middle of that. So that's where we started the Leadership Cafe here, and we found it very enlightening and entertaining at times to turn to some of our finest regional leaders and national leaders now, and find out how they are directing their businesses, how they're leading their employees and teams. Serving their clients in unique and different ways, and contributing to our communities to help make everything run just a little bit better. And that community contribution is what our special guest today is going to be able to enlighten us about.
Hey, but before we get too far along, we want to make sure we thank our sponsor, Vaco, a global talent solutions company. We really appreciate their support of the Leadership Cafe. So today, as we've been teasing you, our special guest is Chad Quinn. Chad is CEO of the Dollar Energy Fund, and the Dollar Energy Fund's mission is to improve the quality of life for households experiencing hardships by providing utility assistance, so essential now during this time of the pandemic and other crises we're facing, with an intent to lead people to self-sufficiency. For more than 37 years, these guys have been around, and they've served the limited income community by providing over $165 million in utility assistance grants to more than, must be over 600,000 limited income families and individuals by this time. So, Chad, thank you for that great work that you guys are doing at the Dollar Energy Fund. Welcome to the Leadership Cafe, and thanks for joining us today.
Well, Richard and Michael, thanks for having me on. I went back and looked at some of the folks you guys have had on this Leadership Cafe, and it's an honor to be part of it. It's an honor you guys called on us. We know what we do is important, but you guys have had some great leaders on this podcast so far, and I'm delighted to be part of it.
Well, we're going to add another scratch to the list there, Chad. So tell us a bit about yourself, your leadership journey, and certainly fill us and the folks in about the Dollar Energy Fund. Your work is so important.
Sure. So I've been at the Dollar Energy Fund for almost 15 years now, and I came from a different background. I wasn't in the nonprofit per se world. So I came to Dollar Energy Fund, and I was the director of development because I had a sales background, and I went through in that role for a few years, and then as we started to grow, I became involved in operations. I was the chief operating officer. And then in the retirement of our CEO, or former CEO, I assumed the role of CEO, and I've been in that role for almost 7 years now. Interestingly enough, when I started a Dollar Energy Fund, they had been about 4 or 5 years into the process of they built a 32-seat call center, and when I got to Dollar Energy Fund, they had about 8 seats in that call center that were filled. Through the time that I've been there, my background has always been you need to grow and you need to continue growing and don't sit stagnant. If you want to retain the best people, you want to be the best in the industry, you need to keep growing. And I'm happy to say that we now have 175 seats.
Holy cow!
And we've committed to growth. And what growth means to Dollar Energy Fund versus another business is, for us, it's about helping people with their utility needs. So if we're growing, it means we're helping more people. It's not just about the bottom line of business. It's about our ability to touch more lives and make sure that more people have utility assistance if they need it.
Chad, can you walk through a little bit about the kinds of services that Dollar Energy Fund provides?
So, Richard, that's a great question. The first, people probably know Dollar Energy Fund from that little box on your utility bill that I hope you look for right now and you go check it. And back in 1983, when we were founded, $1 contribution through your utility bill would be matched by our partner utility companies, and those $2 were a part of, if everybody in the community or a small portion of the community did that, we were able to touch a lot of lives. In 1983, things were a heck of a lot cheaper than they are today. So, $1 doesn't go quite as far, right. But what had happened was that's called our hardship program. And our hardship program is a once per year grant that somebody who's experiencing some type of financial difficulty, typically a very short term loss of a job, somebody was ill, something popped up. We help that person once per year. And typically, I always this is my favorite stat, only 7% of the people we help 1 year come back in any of the next 2 years. Oh, okay. So that's a powerful stat. We're helping people who have really fallen on a hard time and need some temporary assistance. That's what we've always been known to do. That's what we started with in 1983 in the basement of our founder's house. And then they moved into a church, and they've moved a few different times, but we're headquartered in the South Side right now. Probably 15, 18 years ago.
That's the South Side of Pittsburgh, by the way, just want to mention.
Yes, South Side of Pittsburgh. Sorry, that's a Pittsburgh thing. Yeah. I say 15 or 18 years ago. It's probably more like 20, 22 years ago. One of our utilities approached us and said, hey, you guys are good at doing this other program. Would you help us enroll customers into some other programs that can benefit them? And we started doing that. And that's how, when I talk about having a call center, back in probably the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, there was a concept in the nonprofit world called social enterprise. And social enterprise was, can you do something that can generate income to support your nonprofit? Right. And Dollar Energy Fund decided, hey, well, this is a perfect opportunity to be able to do that stuff, is to get a call center, look at this social enterprise activity, and run these programs. And from that, it'll help us pay our rent. It'll help us do some of the other things that we need to do to support the organization. My goal of getting to Dollar Energy Fund was being able to grow that business. And today, the social enterprise activities are about half of the dollars that Dollar Energy Fund brings in on an annual basis. That's helped us spur our growth. It's helped us grow our technology. We've got a huge technology platform that keeps us efficient and lets us be able to grow. And we couldn't have afforded to do that without our social enterprise activities. And because of that growth, we're in 14 states right now. We've got 40 plus utility partners. And we started right here in Pittsburgh with People's Gas, Duquesne Light, and Columbia Gas right here in Pittsburgh. Those were our first 3 utility partners. And now we've got 45 plus partners in 14 different states.
14 states.
Phenomenal. Yeah, so I know when you and I worked together, that idea of creating a scalable model and how important is technology in that, but also how important the leadership and people played in it as well. Have you seen, of course, you've got the software, hardware opportunities there. Have you seen the same advance in terms of your leadership team and what they're focused on and the skills they're building?
Michael, that's a great question. And one thing that this pandemic has brought to us is the ability and the need for someone to be able to apply for assistance in the safety and comfort of their own home. Yes. And one of the initiatives we're undertaking right now, and we're neck deep in it, is we're letting customers apply for special programs online. We're letting them do it from their home, from their basements, from their phones, wherever they may be, because many of the agencies that they would go into to apply for assistance are closed. Many of the caseworkers, the volunteers, aren't there anymore. They won't come in because it's not safe to be meeting with a lot of different people the way they are. So we've given the consumer, the person that needs help, the ability to apply online. And one of the really cool things that we're working on that is just unique to us is that we're actually able to have a 20-minute, what used to be a 20-minute phone call to ask you all these questions to apply for certain programs. We're able to do that via SMS message. So we can text message you different questions and you can reply to it. And when we ask you for, hey, we need your pay stub to prove that you're eligible for this program, take out your phone, take a picture of it, and now we have it. That allows people to apply for assistance and to gain assistance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nice. 365 days a year, and use the technology in such a meaningful way.
Chad, what have you found among yourself and among your leadership team You mentioned before we started you were in Omaha right before the pandemic started, and back in March, and then you came home, and of course everything was shut down. How I would think that you guys would be, despite the fact that we've had help for people through unemployment and through other programs, that it's still pretty tough out there right now. How has your team adjusted to that, and what have you seen from a leadership perspective that's helped guide you guys through some of these choppy waters that you've been seeing?
Well, Richard, the toughest challenge for us was when this first started. We were afraid. There was talk that first week, the week of the 17th of March. Again, as we talked about, I was just coming back from a utility visit in Omaha on a new project we're dealing with in Nebraska. And that next week, we're hearing, we may shut down. We may not be able to come into the office. Wow. So the biggest thing for us was our team that manages this hardship program process is in the office every day. So our first thing was get them out of the office, allow us to continue to run that program by shipping them home. So our IT group was very active that first week. And then we were in the process of shipping the rest of everyone in our call center home as fast as we could. And like every other company in the country, it was really about hardware. How fast can we get hardware in to ship our team home? So we continued to do that. And then we finally got around to look around after we were able to focus on what's happening. What we noticed was that not as many people are applying for energy assistance as we thought was originally going to happen. And, if we remember at the time, the governor issued the emergency order, and it was, you cannot disconnect someone's utility service if they failed to pay their bill. And as we're looking around, we saw 5-mile long lines in the food bank, and we saw all these things we needed to adjust to. So what did that mean to us? One, it meant that if there's a 5-mile long line in the food bank, Dollar Energy Fund isn't going to go out and try to raise dollars right now, because everybody, the smart money was going to the food bank at the time, right? That's the most critical need that you have, knowing that the utilities couldn't be disconnected. The food was primary. Right. So we refrained from trying to go out and raise dollars at the time, and raising dollars costs money. So we said, hey, let's pay attention to what's going on around us. Let's not try to raise dollars against the strong flow of the need for the food bank. That was the first thing we did. The second thing we did was we had to look at our business and say, okay, we have 100 and some resources in our contact center. Let's make sure that there's enough activity here to support all of them, because we're driven by enrollments and enrolling people in the programs. That's how we pay the salaries of those people that are doing that. So from a business standpoint, you have to maintain what's going to be needed when the utilities can start disconnecting, and you have to maintain all those resources, and they need to be there at that time. And in the meantime, you have to make sure you have enough dollars to provide grants to people that need help with their utility bills. They are interconnected. Wow. Yeah, they are interconnected. So we're fortunate that we really didn't have to make any big cuts. We were able to maintain the majority of our staff. There was a very small amount of layoffs, but very, very small. We were able to keep everybody around. We were able to keep all of our programs running, and be there as things started to progress. And we're fortunate to say that we're meeting right now on October will be our busiest October that we've ever had in history.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's the trend. That's what you're going to expect to see coming up.
I think so, Michael. I think, in at least in Pennsylvania and in most of the cold weather states, there is either a winter moratorium that utility companies have where they're not out disconnecting people. Yeah. Contrary to what people think sometimes, your utilities business is to keep your service on. And people always assume, they're just going to come and turn me off. That's the last thing they want to do, because if you're off, you're not using their service. So their goal is to keep you on, and they're obligated by statute that they have to collect from you. They have to use reasonable means to collect from you. and disconnection is a threat that the state has told them they need to follow through on. And they can't give us free energy, right? If I choose not to pay my bill, they have to be able to turn me off. So that's going to be able to happen, starting for a period of time in November. In Pennsylvania, if you're at or below a certain level of poverty, they're going to be able to threaten you with disconnection. In many of the states around us, utilities right now can turn people off. As we're sitting here today, they can turn people off. So now that may be suspended until the weather gets better in the spring, once the weather gets cold. But when that happens, and when the utilities are able to go back to normal collections, I think we're going to be way busier than we are right now. October is busy, or very busy, but I think March and April and May are going to be, the high water marks of any assistance level we've ever had.
Mm. So what guidance do you have to other business leaders or particularly maybe nonprofits leaders based on what you're learning and what you're seeing about the efforts that the Dollar Energy Fund has taken to do on all these adjustments? What would you maybe tell even a for-profit business that's key to sustain your growth through challenges like this?
Well, Michael, for us, it was, looking at our key staff and making sure that, we could continue to have people around and make sure that, we had all the support that we needed to be able to emerge from where we are now, emerge from the pandemic and be ready to help people that needed to be helped. We wanted to make sure that we weren't losing focus on our strategic goals. We had certain strategic goals prior to the pandemic. We wanted to make sure that we were still paying attention to all those things throughout the pandemic and beyond, because we're adjusting to the new normal, but we really don't know what the new normal is until we get through this. Yeah. So we have to focus beyond, and that was what we really told our staff is, let's focus beyond this. Let's make sure we're supporting the people that need our help, whether they're our employees or whether they're constituents that we serve, but let's also not forget about our strategic goals. And that's what we didn't want to derail our process.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's what you've said is, sorry, Richard, that's what you've said is a perspective that we've heard. Well, it's what we've heard from other executives. It's about perspective. Let's not forget our strategy. Let's remember why we're here. We'll get through this. So your message is really reinforcing for that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jen, I was just going to ask you if there's been some significant experience that you've had that kind of shaped your leadership approach, whether it was a mentor or some kind of challenging situation you had, or something that somebody shared with you, or something you read in a book.
I did mention earlier I started reading your strategy-driven leadership, but I do want to admit that I didn't finish it with all the things as busy as they are. So I am very intrigued.
I wasn't pitching. I wasn't looking for a pitch there, actually.
Thank you.
That's okay. No, what I think one of the things that I learned before, and I talk specifically about nonprofit. I brought this mindset into Dollar Energy Fund that, Michael's heard this before from us when he's done our strategic planning, is we say that nonprofit is a tax status. It can't be a business strategy. We cannot budget to lose dollars or to break even every day of the year. We've got to make sure that we're building a foundation and we're building a financial foundation so that if we weren't here, we weren't able to survive through this pandemic because we were underfunded or undercapitalized. We wouldn't have been there to help the people at the end of the day on the back end. So we have taken an approach to run an organization like a business and make sure that the biggest benefit we get is we're helping people first and foremost. But secondly, we're not losing dollars on programs that we administer. And we have to make sure that financially we're not headed down the wrong path on any program, or it just doesn't make sense for us. It takes away from another strength that we have.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Great observations. Well, as we're wrapping up here, one thing that we've been asking folks, our leaders through the Leadership Café, to think about the question we've been asking about the pandemic a little bit different. So this may change if you've had a terrible occurrence in your family, but we've mostly been talking about what the pandemic has done to us. But if you would think about for you as a chief executive, as a leader, what has the pandemic done for you and for Dollar Energy?
Well, Michael, you've also heard me say this before, that Dollar Energy Fund can survive a down economy and an up economy.
Right.
In a down economy, what happens is some new programs will emerge. For instance, right now, we're in the process of administering some CARES funding for utility assistance. In Nebraska, as I mentioned, we have a new program there. We're administering pretty much a statewide program in the state of West Virginia. And we should be starting to administer some dollars here in Allegheny County that'll be coming for some coronavirus relief.
Great.
But it has created an opportunity to do some of that and really address the frontline need that we have here in our community. And Pittsburgh is a strong region. They've always found a way to support our work. Another challenge we have is so many of the things we do to raise dollars are in person. We do our cool down for warmth in Market Square in downtown Pittsburgh every year, and we're building this big house out of ice, and we look up and we see all these workers in these skyscrapers around us, and we want them to come down and take part in this event, and it's our biggest fundraiser. It's our biggest outreach event, and now there's no one in the office. We can't have mass gatherings. We can't do our Bowls for Warmth event where we serve soup to people on their lunch breaks. We can't do any of that because we can't gather in large gatherings. So how do we raise dollars? How do we meet the need to continue to raise dollars when our foundation of raising funds has been taken from us? Again, let me go back to the growth and the support of Pittsburgh. We've had a couple foundations come to us and say, hey, how are you going to do that this year? And can we help you out? Can we help offset some of that difference? We've had some new corporate donations come forward and said, hey, we realize it's going to be a difficult year for you. Can we help you by doing this? There's no greater region, and I'll say this as a proud Pittsburgher, there's no greater region than our region that we're in. At least I'm kind of partial to that. So if anybody's listening outside of Pittsburgh, they know why. But we're a generous group of people. We're a proud group of people. We're willing to help our neighbors, and I'm really proud of the work that we're able to do, and I'm proud of the work that our region's been able to help us support.
Great. Well, thank you, Chad, for taking the time and your busy schedule, obviously, to be a guest on the Leadership Cafe. I know you've got our book, but we'll send you another signed copy. I think this one's signed by Roth, Richard, and I. Maybe you can share that with somebody else in the office. Of course, we want to also thank our sponsor, Vaco, who without them we couldn't be doing this. It's just been so interesting and such a learning experience talking with folks like Chad, Quinn, and other chief executives. When our podcasts will be published every week on Thursdays, and you'll be able to listen to them too on Richard's website, on my website, on the vaco.com website, as well as on LinkedIn, Spotify, Pocket Casts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We also, of course, want to again thank our producer Michelle, who does all the great work in the background to keep us on target and keep these things rolling along. So, for all of us at the Leadership Cafe, thanks for joining. I'm Michael Couch, by the way,
and I'm Richard Citron, and we look forward to connecting with you on the next Leadership Cafe.
Yeah,
and Chad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.